Alara, thank you so much for joining me. It's so nice to see you.
I'm so thrilled to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I was just looking at your Instagram and I'm so excited to talk about wealth embodiment because this is such a topic that is so critical for so many of us, but also many of my clients, many of my
Mhm.
colleagues, even in the spiritual space, spiritual coaches and healers. We all still struggle sometimes with abundance, with being embodied from a wealth perspective. So, for those that aren't as familiar with your background, I would love for you to just share a little bit more about you and what you're passionate about.
Yes, absolutely. So, this is really my mission that has come through to help change makers and leaders to shepherd in the new era of wealth, as I call it. And this really happened to me because in 2020, I was running a six-figure business, which is my business now. And in 2021, all of my money was stolen. And
Oh no.
yeah, I was actually told by higher self that it was going to happen. And I agreed to it. It was a karmic debt and just how everything transpired. But the point behind it is all of my money was stolen. And I definitely had this initial wave of fear that I shifted through. And then I said to myself, you know what? I've got this because I've always had this ability to create my reality. Even when I was a kid, people would literally say to me, how do you do it? You always get what you want. And I was like, I don't know. And through the years, I've learned how I do it and become very connected with the methods and modalities that I use. So I was confident. I thought, I've got this. I'm just going to recreate it. It's just money, it'll just come back. But that's not what happened. In my process of working to recreate my wealth, my six-figure business collapsed.
What do you mean it
And
collapsed? What happened?
all of my clients, the clients disappeared. My launches weren't working. I went into the red. I was, again, making six figures into the red.
Wow.
And nothing I was doing was working. And of course, being self aware, the question became okay, what is the offering here? What am I really trying to learn from this experience? And I went deep into what I've been told through higher self is the three primary wounds of humanity, stemming from the first wound of belief of separation. And from that first wound of separation, three core wounds: money, sex, and power. And I'm pretty sure that the audience can, even just from those very simple words, see the wounding that we have here. So I was taken into each of those wounds very deeply, into my own belief structures around them, into past lives, ancestral energies, deep healing. And the understanding it's that is really where wealth comes from. Wealth comes from our personal power. Wealth comes from our creative life force energy, which our sexual energy. We're not talking about the act of sex. When I say sex, I actually meant sexual power, sexual energy. Our sexual energy is creative life force energy.
Mhm.
Not all creative life force energy is sexual, but all sexual energy is creative life force energy. And then money is the tool through which creative life force energy can express itself. And so I really learned a great deal about what wealth really means to embody that and move out of spaces where we are focused on the external circumstances. And perfect example is myself. I had that six-figure business, but I did not have a healthy relationship with money. I did not feel secure and safe, even though I had plenty of money. And the deeper understanding of finding and embodying that security in ourselves, that empowerment of the self to then create wealth from those realizations and embodiment. And I believe this is what the change makers are here to do. They're here to embody this new frequency of wealth that is rooted in that self empowerment, that sense of security and safety, a healthy relationship with their sexual energy, a healthy relationship with money, and bring this onto the planet.
Wow. Three big concepts and things that definitely people struggle with or have some sort of history with, I guess I could say, if we don't place any judgment on it. So, what is your definition of wealth? So, when you're talking about wealth, what is a good working definition, maybe for everyone, just so we're on the same page?
It's the connection to your personal power, your
Mm,
innate abundance, and your real feeling secure, safe, and free.
okay. Love that. And then how does money differ from that? 'Cause some people might think that wealth and money are the same thing, but how do you see them?
From my perspective, and what I think is the new era of wealth, when we're embodied in wealth consciousness, which is what I just referred to, money shows up, money is created, money is this, again, the symbol of our creative life force energy. So when we're rooted in our power, money will be there,
Mm,
but the focus is not on the money. It can be on the money. I really want to say this because this has been a big battle for me in my profession of spiritual mentorship. It's not okay to focus on the money. It's not okay to want money, to desire money. And we can focus on the money. We can have money goals. We can have desires for great amounts of wealth, always in understanding that it's never truly about the money. Money is simply an amplifier. And simultaneously, money is an amazing mirror that is quantifiable. So there's
mm,
a lot of learning to be done through our relationship to money. And I want to really drop the stigmas around the desire for money or having money goals, because it's really about how you're seeing it. And so with wealth consciousness, you are embodied in the awareness of all of this. And then money comes from that. And the difference also being is, again, I had money. I didn't feel secure. A lot of people that have money don't actually feel abundant and wealthy. They are petrified. They're scared. They feel insecure. So money is never the solution. Wealth embodiment is, because then you feel wealthy regardless. You're connected to that energy, to that personal power, and to that freedom. Now, whatever happens in the external reality, the stock markets, the economic system, the elections, it
yeah.
doesn't displace you in your connection to your wealth. And taking it a step further, when we're embodied in wealth consciousness, we are tapped into the frequency of money in a healthy relationship. And we're tapped into the portals of abundance, because while abundance always is, it's not always in the same spot. If you look at Mother Gaia, she goes through cycles. There are sometimes on the apple tree is full, and other parts of the season, that apple tree is empty. And there's another tree in a different area of the world that is full. Abundance shifts. It doesn't stay in the same exact offer, so to speak, the same exact resource. So wealth consciousness is tapping into all of that so that you are a couple of steps ahead of where the energy is moving, and you're not attached to and, quite frankly, a victim of what the external is doing and showing.
I love that. And it seems, take a step back. What are some of the things that you recommend, or how do you guide people, your clients, through building this wealth embodiment, feeling so secure if maybe people have lived their entire life in scarcity, or even if they have the money, they just don't feel like they are abundant, or they're hoarding money, all kinds of different things that we do sometimes if we don't have the safety and the security. What are some of the things, or how do you work with clients?
First, it's about addressing the belief structures around power, sexual energy, and money. There's so much information that just comes through that.
Yeah.
And then it's about addressing those limiting beliefs in your subconscious mind. One of the ways that I do that is through breath work, because breath work is so powerful. When you're utilizing breath work, it shifts your nervous system.
Hmm.
And so if you have the awareness of, let's take, for instance, the relationship that you have with money, you realize that your relationship with money isn't the best. It's not the most loving. It's not the most secure and safe relationship. If you bring your awareness to that and you do breath work, you're going to be shifting energy so powerfully through your body, through your subconscious mind, through your nervous system. You don't even necessarily have to tap into what everything is that you're shifting. So breath work, I find, is massively transformational for my clients, as well as I use meta programming, which are energetic activations to help also with the subconscious mind, as well as the ancestral energies and the past parallel lives. And lastly, it's really about understanding quantum mechanics because, okay, we have our belief structures and we know where we are now. There are infinite timelines, infinite versions of ourselves. So there is always a version of you that's wealthy, and there's a version of you that's poor. And it's really about aligning vibrationally to the version of you that you want to be and learning how to collapse that time, really become that you. So these are the modalities that I use that is called my wealth flow framework with my clients to help them through this process. Because let's be really honest, it's not an easy process. I went through it personally myself, and I didn't have money when I went through this. So I was learning how to embody the vibration of wealth when I didn't have any money. That's really powerful because that can never be taken away from me.
Yeah. How long did it take for you? You said that you were in a state maybe of not embodying wealth. You'd lost the money, something very traumatic. It would be very frightening to experience that. I know for myself, it would be frightening. And so then you felt into what you needed to do and you made the shift for yourself. What was that process? How long did it take from the time that you said, okay, I need to rebuild this business differently, I need to approach life differently, until then you had this framework to be able to share with others?
2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And my guidance was my higher self. I didn't fully know what was necessarily happening to me as I went through that process. That's where I learned it all and gained the insight and the information.
And how did you tap into your highest self? Was it through meditation, or did you said you did it by yourself, or were you working with others?
I've been connected through my higher self my whole life. And as I have learned more and more what that is, learning how to connect more and more, I teach my clients to connect to that version of themselves through their heart and how to clarify when you're connected to that part of yourself, how to really trust that information, lean in on yourself with regards to that. And as we trust it, the connection grows.
And you're talking about the life force within us. So tell me a little bit more about how you help your clients tap into that. Because for some people, they may have heard that before. Maybe they've heard about Shakti energy, or they've heard about Kundalini rising, or various things. So what do you call it? And how do you work with clients to help tap into that?
Yes. So I call it Shakti. I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening back in 2014. I had no idea what Kundalini Shakti was at the time that it happened to me. And it was a very intense experience. And through that process, I connected in with my Shakti and learned this powerful energy and really became to understand it. And also through that process, became an activator of that energy within others. So my clients get activated just by working with me, but I also teach people how to activate it. It's a lot about holding your awareness at the seat of the Shakti, breathing into the seat of the Shakti, and getting out of your own way, because the Shakti is a stream of consciousness. It's the divine feminine. She's very powerful and very wise. Regardless of our sexual identity, she exists within us all. She just needs us to let her do her thing. And there's some practices that teach you to move her and work with her. She has taught me just to let hands off, just to breathe, to empower that energy, to give it permission and let her move, because she's, again, a stream of consciousness. She will move through you exactly as the way that works with you. But I connect both men and women, connect women down into their wombs, connecting them into their Shakti, really activating that creative life force energy, because of course our womb is the vessel of creative energy. And for men, that's called the hara. So really reconnecting to that. Even in spirituality, we talk a lot about the third eye. We talk a lot about the heart. But people are missing what I call the third creator center. There's three creator centers: the sacral, the heart, and the third eye. And it's imperative to connect down into that because that's where your power is. That's where your sexual energy is. That's where your Shakti is. And that's where your relationship to money is.
Mm, it's so fascinating. And there's, I think, a stigma sometimes. People hear the word Kundalini, they've read things online, people have made them afraid of, don't allow this power to take over. And yeah, so for those that maybe are scared of activating that energy within, what could you say? What would you say to them?
Such a great question. I'm glad that you brought that up. For one, this is you. This energy
Mhm.
is you. It's not separate than you. And for the majority, the vast majority of people, the activation is very slow and beautiful. There are a very small amount of people that it happens spontaneous, like it did for me. It's not the normal.
Mhm.
Even through my spontaneous of not even understanding what was happening to me, I was able to move through it rather easily for a very challenging experience. This is our power. And this is that wounding. In so many ways, we desire to feel empowered. We desire to experience our power in the world. We want to let go of the wounding of third density victim perpetrator that we've been in for ages and ages. We want to feel empowered. So having that courage, giving yourself that permission to take those steps because it is you and you will not be overwhelmed by it. You will not be consumed by it. It is a part of you and you will learn how to connect to it and ultimately how to utilize it.
Mhm. I love that. I'm glad you described it because I think sometimes we think that it's some dormant energy that is outside ourselves, that it is some sort of something to be feared. And in my experience, it's not, like you said, it's just something that is within us. And typically, when the timing is right, there's a natural unfolding. Yeah. What was your spontaneous experience? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So at that time in my life, I was meditating regularly and working on my chakras. And I was working on horses. I was doing physical therapy to horses. I did body work on them. So one day I got in my car and was driving to go visit the horses, and Higher Self came in and said, Om 3 times. And I knew what oming was. It was not a
Yeah.
part of my practice at all. I didn't do
Yeah.
it regularly, but I said, okay, Higher Self. So Om, really intentional. And
Yeah.
on the end of the third Om, an energy shot from the base of my body all the way through my body, out my crown. And I went into full body orgasm driving my car. Luckily, I was on a back road. I was only going 35 miles an hour. And I had never had a full body orgasm at that point in my life. So I pulled the car over and just let myself be in the pleasure of it. Interestingly enough, at that time in my life, orgasm in and of itself, just physical during sex orgasm was challenging for me, let alone a full body orgasm having nothing to do with the act of sex. And after the full body orgasm subsided, I found myself totally in a complete ecstatic state. And I was just so blissed out. And
Mhm.
I was driving down the road. I got back on the road and I had the music cranked. I was dancing in my car. I was waving at everybody. I was just having so much fun. And I went and worked on the horses that day and they soaked it up. They all
Yeah.
went into trance and they were just like, this is so good.
Yeah.
I had no idea what had happened to me, like I said. And then what happened after that day was all of the emotions that I had pushed down over the years came flooding out. I had considered myself to be emotionally stable, very grounded individual. But what I had actually been doing was suppressing my emotion and just not letting myself feel it. I went through 5 months, especially there initially, where one minute I would be crying, sobbing. The next minute I'd be raging. The next minute I'd be
Mm.
laughing, hysterical. And I asked higher self several times, am I going crazy?
Am I
And
okay?
yeah. And higher self just said, breathe and allow.
Mhm.
That was all the information I got during that time. So that's what I did. And then about 5 months, it was tapering off. It wasn't like 5 full months, but
Yeah.
around 5 months, it was really hit an equilibrium. And that's when, as divine orchestration does, brought this book into my space called Kundalini Awakening. And the
Mm.
first chapter talked about spontaneous awakening, and it was like the light bulb went off.
Yeah, I love when books just fall into your lap and you're like, oh, thank you. I needed this. I had a similar experience during breath work where my entire body was like lifted off the ground. Everything was reverberating through my body. And I felt no separation from me and any other energy around me. It was just like the most intense, amazing thing ever. And have you experienced that since then? Yeah,
Yeah.
in breath work or in any other.
Yeah,
So,
spontaneously, I had a communion with God, and then also with breath work and yeah, various different ways that it has come through.
yeah, it's so amazing. And it's so unexpected too. I'm like, oh, wow, that's very interesting. So tell me about the different ways if someone is interested in working with you, what is the best way that they can find you? Where are you most active? And is there anything coming up that you want to share with the listeners?
So alarasage.com is my website. I'm on Facebook and Instagram the most. I'm also on LinkedIn and YouTube, but a little bit less. And I have a membership called Prosperity Portal. And this is really my space to help individuals move through these programs, these subconscious beliefs. It's a membership where twice a month I bring in activations around wealth codes. And this is beyond just money. It's what we talked about here today. So we are deactivating a lot of subconscious beliefs, ancestral energies, past parallel life energy, as well as activating the deeper understandings of our innate abundance. So they're very powerful sessions that are happening twice a month. And that's my membership called Prosperity Portal. And it's just a really great way for people to come into my world and really experience the power of this kind of work and the transformation that they can go through.
That's amazing. And then you also have a podcast.
Yes, Wealth Embodied is my
Mm.
podcast. So the intention there is to activate and inspire in wealth consciousness, creative genius, and visionary impact.
That's amazing. And do you launch weekly or what is your schedule
I
for
do
that?
solo episodes on Tuesday and I have guest episodes on Thursday.
That's amazing. How long have you been doing your podcast?
I launched it in 2023 and I rebranded it at its 1 year anniversary this year.
Mm,
So
that's amazing. It's so good. So I will definitely include all those links in the show notes. And I want to ask you another question. I ask everyone on the podcast what it means to live the width of their life, but you have a similar expression called living your hell yes life, which might be similar. So tell me a little bit about living your hell yes life.
yes. And that's one of the things I just loved about you and this podcast is the name and the mission
Mm.
that you stand for. To me, living our hell yes life is really being tapped into what lights us up from the inside, not what we're told we should do or be, or what would create success or wealth, but actually truly what energetically lights us up and having the courage to say yes to that over and over again. And yes, it creates that depth, it creates that width, it creates that aliveness and that fulfillment that we all desire.
So true. We all desire it, and yet not everyone is courageous enough to heed the call. Alara, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for the amazing work that you are doing in this world. And for those listening, definitely I encourage you to check out Alara and to become part of her community.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.